Once, the god of death sent one of his messengers to earth with a solemn task, to collect the soul of a woman who had just died. Obediently, the messenger descended to fulfill his duty, but upon arriving he was met with a heartbreaking scene that shook his resolve. Before him lay the lifeless body of the woman, and beside her, three tiny girls, triplets. One was still nursing from her mother's breast, unaware of her passing. Another sobbed uncontrollably, while the third had cried herself to sleep, dried tears marking her cheeks. The sight pierced the messenger's heart. These helpless children were now completely alone. Their father had already passed away, and there was no one left to care for them. Overwhelmed with sorrow and compassion, the messenger could not bring himself to take the mother's soul. Instead, he returned to the heavens, her soul untouched. When he stood before the god of death, he bowed his head and said, "Forgive me, but I couldn't take her soul. You don't understand what I saw. Three innocent infants, all alone, one still clinging to her mother's body, another sobbing until sleep overtook her, the third crying as if her world had ended. And it had. I couldn't do it. Please let their mother live just a little longer, at least until they're old enough to survive without her." The god of death, however, was not moved. His voice thundered with anger. "You dare question the will of the one who commands life and death? You believe you know better than the one who governs the universe? Today you have committed your first sin, and for that you will be punished." The punishment was clear. You will return to earth. There you will remain until you laugh at your own foolishness, not once but 3 times. Only then may you return. The messenger accepted his fate, though he held firm in his heart that he had done the right thing. He couldn't imagine a day would come when he'd laugh at what he believed was an act of compassion. Cast down to earth, the messenger lay by the roadside, shivering in the cold. Not far away, a cobbler was heading to the city to buy warm clothes and blankets for his children in preparation for winter. As he walked, the cobbler noticed the freezing man beside the road, the fallen messenger. Moved by pity, he made a difficult choice. Instead of buying clothes for his own children, he spent the money on warm clothes and a blanket for the stranger. He brought the man home, saying gently, "Come with me. Don't worry if my wife gets angry. I used the money meant for our children's clothes to help you. She'll be upset, but things will calm down eventually." The cobbler took the shivering stranger home, unaware, as was his wife, that this man was no ordinary beggar, but a divine messenger in disguise. The moment they stepped inside, the cobbler's wife exploded with anger. "You spent our children's clothing money on a stranger?" she shouted. "Winter is almost here. What were you thinking?" Witnessing this, the messenger laughed, for the first time. Surprised, the cobbler turned to him. "Why are you laughing? What's so funny?" The messenger simply replied, "I'll explain, but only after I've laughed 3 times. Please don't ask me yet." He had laughed because the woman was so focused on what they had lost, money meant for their children's clothes, that she couldn't see the blessing they had unknowingly invited into their home. She saw only the immediate sacrifice, not the greater good it would bring. The messenger, in that moment, realized a deep truth. Humans often fail to see the bigger picture, trapped by what's right in front of them. As days passed, the messenger learned the cobbler's trade. Being divine, he mastered the craft quickly. The shoes he made were exquisite, and it wasn't long before the shop gained fame. Word spread, and soon the cobbler's humble business was thriving. They became wealthy. Their fortunes turned. One day, a royal servant arrived at the shop carrying a rare piece of leather. "This leather is precious," the servant said. "Make shoes for the king. But listen carefully. Make shoes, not sandals. There's only enough leather for 1 pair. Do not make a mistake." At that time, in some cultures, it was tradition to bury the dead in sandals, never in shoes. The cobbler warned the messenger again and again, "Make shoes only. If we fail, the king won't forgive us." But for reasons even he didn't understand, the messenger ended up making sandals. When the cobbler saw what he had done, he was furious. "You've doomed us. I told you, no sandals. Why didn't you listen?" At that moment, the messenger laughed again, for the second time. Before the cobbler could speak, the king's servant burst through the door, breathless. "Stop everything. The king has just passed away. We need sandals, not shoes." The cobbler stood in stunned silence. He turned to the messenger, now realizing he had somehow known or sensed what was coming. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Please forgive my anger." The messenger gently replied, "You did nothing wrong. I'm simply fulfilling my punishment." He had laughed the second time because he saw yet another truth of the world. Humans make plans, live in fear of what could go wrong, but the future always unfolds beyond our control. We worry, we plan, but life follows a path we cannot foresee. And in that moment, the messenger began to think of the three little girls once again, the triplets he had left with their dead mother. He realized that his worry had been misplaced. Life had already written their story. Just a few days later, three young women entered the cobbler's shop. They were there to order wedding shoes accompanied by an elegant, wealthy older woman. The moment the messenger saw them, his heart skipped a beat. He recognized them immediately. They were the triplets. He turned to the older woman and gently asked, "Where did these girls come from? What happened to them?" The older woman looked at the messenger with warmth and said, "These girls aren't my biological daughters. I found them when they were just infants. Their mother had died while trying to feed them, and no one was there to care for them. I had no children of my own, so I took them in and raised them as if they were mine." She smiled with pride. "They grew up in comfort and love, and now all three are preparing to marry into royalty." Hearing this, the messenger laughed, for the third and final time. He turned to the cobbler and finally explained everything. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I thought I knew better than fate. I believed I had to protect those children myself, that without their mother their lives would fall apart. But now I see, fate is far wiser than any of us. We only see what's in front of us, but the bigger picture is far beyond our understanding. I've now laughed at my own foolishness 3 times," he continued, "and with that, my punishment is complete. I can return home, to the heavens, wiser than before." With a heart full of clarity and peace, the messenger returned to the realm above. The moral of the story. This tale reminds us that life doesn't always make sense in the moment. We often stress over situations we can't control, assuming that every challenge is a setback, but we don't see the full picture. Sometimes what feels like a tragedy is actually the beginning of something greater. Whether it's a broken relationship, financial hardship, or a health crisis, in those moments we may ask, "Why me?" But those very hardships often shape us in powerful ways. They teach us patience, build resilience, and unlock strength we never knew we had. Just like the messenger couldn't imagine how the triplets would thrive after losing their mother, we too can't predict how our struggles might lead to unexpected blessings. So trust the journey. Be patient with life. Believe that even in the darkest moments, a greater plan may be unfolding, one you simply can't see yet.